Okay, welcome to our safety video for West Van Secondary Urban Agriculture. So before you go into a hive, you want to check the weather. Bees are a lot like us, and their mood is affected by the weather. So a bright sunny day is the best time to go into a hive. You'll find that if the weather's a bit rainy, overcast, or if it's too close to sunset, the bees get into a bit worse of a mood. The other bad thing about that is during a sunny day, all of the bees are gone foraging. If it's a crappier day or close to sunset, you find that a lot of them are coming back to the hive. So there's a lot more bees around. They're in a slightly worse mood. So again, you're going for a sunny day possible, and probably not after 5 at night or so. So once you open up a hive, you want to make sure you have everything with you, because you want to get that hive closed up as soon as you can. So before you open up the hive, make sure you've got with you your hive tool. Make sure you've got your bee brush. Make sure you've got some kind of a bee suit. So at the very, very minimum, you want to make sure that you've got a veil to cover up your face. Do a quick check to make sure that there's no gashes or holes in it. Often you'll see that that veil is attached to a bee jacket, and in this case I've got a full bee suit that I'm going to be putting on just for extra safety. Also very important is boots. About 90% of the stings I've ever had have been either in my hands or in my ankles. They do love to go for those ankles, so the boots are important. Make sure you've got some gloves, and elbow length gloves I find are the best. And another piece of equipment that's important is a smoker. So depending on how the bees are feeling that day, we use it some days and not other days, but it's always a good thing to have with you. Now when you're filling your smoker, I tend to use dry leaves, often burlap. You want to be using something that burns at quite a low temperature, because a high temperature smoke will actually damage the bees. Okay, so I'm all suited up here. You'll notice that my suit is white. White seems to be the color that calms the bees the most. The worst colors you can use tend to be the darker colors, or anything in the blue spectrum, so blue or purple, not great colors to be wearing around the beehive. White seems to be the best one. I've also got my smoker fired up here, so I'm going to go ahead and give them a couple of blasts right in the front of the hive. Again, I'm trying to keep the temperature of my smoke cool, and I don't want to be blasting them too hard. I don't want to damage any of the bees. Just a little bit of smoke, what it'll do two things. One thing is it drives the bees lower down into the hive, so there's less up around you. Second thing is, when bees are stressed, they're going to release an alarm pheromone, which helps to piss off the other bees. So if you can put smoke into the area, it can disrupt their ability to sense that alarm pheromone, and they tend to stay a little bit calmer. So I'll just go ahead and give them a couple blasts here at the front of the hive. And then we'll let that sink in for a minute or two, and then we're going to open up the hive. Okay, we're ready to go into the hives now. So you'll notice when you go into the hive, you want to be approaching them from the side or from behind. This keeps the bees a lot calmer. They tend to defend the front area of their hive quite vigorously, but if you come in from behind or from the side, keep them a lot happier. So I'm starting here by taking off the top cover, the outer cover. I put this down beside the hive upside down. Then any further boxes I take off, I'm going to set right on top of this. You'll find that if you set the boxes on the ground, the wax on the bottom of the frames tends to pick up little rocks and stuff that get stuck in the hive. So set that platform first of all. Then we'll open up the inner cover. Now often the bees will have stuck this using propolis, which is just a mixture of wax and tree sap. So you'll need to get your hive tool in underneath there and just loosen it up as gently as you can before you pull this thing off. These guys have really stuck this one together. So once we've got our inner cover off, take a look and just take a minute to sense the mood of the hive. If they're jumping up at you right away, If they're starting to headbutt you in your veil, you might want to think about whether you really need to be in here today. A simple test you can do is just put your hand over top, and if they're jumping at your hand, they might be a little bit pissy today. These guys seem to be leaving me alone, so it's a good sign. So now that we're in here, I'm going to crack open a frame. So if we gently pull one frame out, here's the bees here. Again, you can sense their mood by how they're moving on the frame. If they're running back and forth really fast, it might be an indication that they're not so happy. You can see that these guys are kind of just gently meandering back and forth, so this is a happy hive. Now once I've taken off my first frame, I set that one aside, and that gives me room to work on the others. That way they're not always constantly sticking together. So after this, I'm going to go through all of the frames in quick succession and do my hive inspection that way. Once you've gone through your hive, there's a few things you want to do for safety before you call it a day. First thing is make sure that your smoker is either off or that you've plugged the end of it, which will starve it of oxygen and you're not going to start a fire. The second thing is before you take off your veil or any of your gloves, have a buddy check your suit. This is a good time for the bee brush to gently brush those bees off. Make sure that there's no hangers on hers. You might want to check your pockets as well, they can be in there. Last thing is, you want to check through your equipment, especially your gloves. If you've been stung in the gloves, often that stinger will still be in there. And there tends to be a pheromone that's released when a bee stings you. It's an attack pheromone, gets the other ones to attack you. So if you noticed a few stings in your gloves or in your suit, you want to wash those before you go into the hive the next time. So a couple other considerations here. Bees are quite sensitive to smells, so when you're in the hive, stay away from perfume, body odor, coffee breath, anything that's strong odor. Same thing goes with breathing on the bees. They're sensitive to the CO2, so don't breathe heavily on them. If you do wind up getting stung, what you want to do is blow some smoke on the sting and back out of the hive, closing it up as quickly as you can. Last thing too, if the bees seem to be swarming you a little bit or they seem aggressive, the worst thing you can do is bat your arms around and swat at them. So just try to stay calm, close up the hive, back out calmly, and you'll be fine.